Bosh, squeeze the neck. We're back up in Dudley, I believe we're in today, mate, right?
Yep, in Dudley today.
Dudley today. I normally say my new mate, but my old mate we've met before, haven't we?
Yeah.
Technical issues, we'll get into that at some point.
Man.
Andy Flute,
Great to
thanks
see
a
you
lot,
again.
mate. Brilliant.
Thanks
So,
for coming.
just to give you a brief introduction for anyone who doesn't know, former professional boxer, sparred the likes of the Eubanks, the Benns of the world, which we'll get into. But before we get into any of that, mate, take us back to where you're from originally.
Yeah, I'm from Calzaghe in the West Midlands. So started boxing at the age of 11. I carried on all the way through. Never had a year off.
Never had a year off.
No,
it's quite rare, that, isn't it, for kids to start that young?
Yeah, I'd have a year off till I was about 28, 29.
Yeah, right, yeah.
You know what I mean? I was winning schoolboy titles, National Association of Boys Club titles, junior titles, and then I was picked box for England, and then, you know, I just carried on, to be honest.
How'd you get into boxing? Was your old man a boxer?
My dad was a boxer, my uncle was a boxer, my brother was a boxer. We boxed for a place called Bills to Golden Gloves. Then we moved from there, and we went to Wensfield ABC, where my dad was the coach and was running the club. Then we started a new club, Tipton ABC. So in total, we've had 3 amateur boxing clubs. And we had a professional gym as well. You know, my uncle had a professional gym. So boxing's like in the family, if you know what I mean.
Was it one of them that was just that was always the thing? It weren't really a conscious thing.
Yeah,
it was just,
I never want to go out playing and stuff like that. I just
Right.
wanted to get to the gym with my dad and watch. I mean, I was going to the gym when I was 3 or 4.
Was ya?
Watching them. You know, and obviously by ABA rules, you're not allowed to fight till you're 11, are you?
That's it, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I hanged about till I was 11, and then had my first one, and then I was, you know, I like the feeling of it. Like I was hooked straight away. Like I liked it.
Well, that's quite funny as well. Like where you was in the gym so young. Like we all know people that have been in the gyms like when they're 6 and whatever.
Yeah.
By the time they're mid-teens, they've had enough, haven't they? They can't stand boxing. They sort of like their dad, whether their dad made them or whatever, but their dad brought them around it. But you obviously stuck all the way through.
I stuck it, man. I stuck it. I never wanted to go to school. Then my dad was in the scrap business, and my dad had got horses as well. So like I was like other kids. I'd got horses myself as a kid. Like when I was like 10, I got my own horse, and I'd go out after school or after work. Because I'd go to work with my dad. My dad had got a scrap business, stables, horses, and stuff like that. That's like the background I'm from.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where everybody else, all the kids would be out on the bike after school, I'd be out on my horse.
Yeah, that's a bit different, isn't it? Yeah, that's funny, man.
I mean?
That's funny. And what's it like, Randy? Like, because obviously, like I come from London. Like boxing's quite a big deal. Is boxing big up here as well?
Yeah. There's some good boxers come from around here. There's one time there's lots of amateur clubs and and lots of pros, lots of stuff. Yeah, boxing. Obviously London's obviously the bigger area, but Birmingham area. I used to go over Birmingham for lots of sparring and stuff like that. There's plenty of gyms, there's some good talent up this way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I bet there is. I mean, like historically, there's always been good fighters come out of this part. All over England, really. To be fair, as well, wasn't there? But like, when you was amateur boxing, what sort of year are we talking when you were 11? How old? I'm going to expose your age here, mate.
When I was 11, I was 1981.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are we talking? We're talking like your Marvin Haglers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
And when you're in the amateurs back then, the setup was what? Because like nowadays it's Olympics, progression, all that kind of stuff. It was obviously around then, but was that the view?
I was picked for the Olympics.
Right, okay.
For the Barcelona Olympics. But because there was no funding, I'd boxed for England quite a few times. I boxed the world champion Raymond Garby from Cuba. I knocked the Bulgarian champion out the day before, and then I fought the world amateur champion, which was Raymond Garby at the time. And then once I lost on a 3-2 decision, but like that's the top of the tree.
Yeah, of course,
you know what I mean? I boxed the German champion. I knocked him out in the first round. So like I was picked for the Olympics, but there was no Sport England. There was nothing. There was no funding. I was training at Crystal Palace with the England squad. Right. I was having to get my own train fare and stuff like that. There was no.
It's mental, that, isn't it? That's
So and I already boxed the best in the world as amateur. So I thought, well, what's the point? I want to try and make my mark as a professional. I probably turned professional too early, to be honest. You know what I mean? But because I'd fought Raymond Garby, who was the world number 1, lost a 3-2 decision, but I had to box the day before. I said, well, there's not really much else for me to do. I might as well, from the background I was from, like being in the scrap metal business and stuff, cash is king. Do you know what I mean?
Of course,
You know what I mean? So I wanted money.
Right,
You know what
right.
I mean?
Which is mental when you're on the, because what are we talking? Barcelona Olympics '92, I believe, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like, it's not that long ago, and
No.
you're like, there's no funding for it. But and I'll tell you the reason it's funny for me. I was with lady Chantel Reed. I don't know if you know Chantel. Shout out Chantel.
Yeah.
She went to the Paris Olympics for
Yeah.
GB. And like was basically a full-time pro as an amateur, like the funding and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's only like a generation really in it to take away. What changed it? Was it Audley or was it more Amir Khan?
I don't know. I don't know exactly. I don't know. But like the lottery helped as well, don't it?
Right.
You know what I mean, the lottery funding coming and you know, and stuff
But it should
like
be
that.
in it, like
yeah,
I mean, like
you know, it's hard work, man. It's hard.
it's the hardest of work, isn't it? Let's be
being
real.
a boxer's hard work.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you've got to juggle it round. I mean, when I was like early professional, I'd like do my road work of the morning, then go to work all day, and then go in the gym at the night. And then you know, it's like, you know, until you can get into be a full-time pro, it's hard work.
Well, that's what people don't see, innit? It's like you
so-
say you're a
so-
pro boxer,
yeah,
they think,
hard, like it's a hard game. Boxing is one of the hardest games out the lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't care, and especially when you've got to go into the later rounds as well. You know what I mean? And it's all about, like, people can call themselves a boxer, but it's like football. They can call themselves a footballer, but there's Premiership leagues and Sunday leagues.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? But I'll take my hat off to anybody who can get in that ring because you're on your own.
Yeah.
Don't matter any level, right? I train lads and you know, at all levels and that, and I'll say to them, to be a boxer, to walk to that ring, you need some balls.
Yeah,
big
time.
I mean, anybody can walk on a football pitch, you know, or anybody can play on a rugby and stuff like that. But to walk to the ring on your own, it's a different thing altogether. And it don't matter at any level. That's any level.
That's
you know
it.
what I mean? Boxing's a warrior sport, man. You know what I mean?
Incredibly hard thing in the changing rooms, all the shit that goes with it.
Oh,
innit?
when
Like,
you're sitting in that changing room, you're darting yourself and you're thinking, what am I doing this for?
Yeah, everyone says the same thing. Then everyone says, "Why am I here again for?" Fucking no, you know. But it is.
I tell you, man.
Yeah, I've said it on here before, so I'll keep it brief. But I remember being in the change room once. I was 19 in the amateurs, and there was a geezer in there. He was like 29, so he's a man to me.
Yeah.
We used to spar a lot, and he was good and whatever. But he was having his first bout. He got into it late, and I remember him sitting there, and he was going like, "Oh, and then what happens when this?" And I'd had a few bouts. Do you know what I mean? He was going, "What?" And you know when you're like, "I got to get away from you, mate." It was like a catchy disease. Like I could see what's going to happen, and bless him. I don't know his name, but I wouldn't mention it anyway. But he, you know, he got bounced around and knocked out in the first round. So you know, it's a real thing, isn't it? But like from turning pro, was your ambition straight away? Well, you tell me, what was your ambition turning pro?
What really happened with me, right? I was the best middleweight in England in like 1988, 1989. Like I said, and I was, you know, destined for great things and stuff like that. But I started to celebrate my victories all the time,
Right.
by having a drink of alcohol, and then then I started going out most weekends. Then when I turned professional, I had over 100 amateur fights. I never cut.
Right. Okay. You
Now,
just got in a ring or what? Yeah.
Now, as a professional, I started to cut, but I wasn't drinking as an amateur.
Right.
But I was drinking as a professional most weekends, and then I started to cut. Even though, like within 3 years of being a professional, I boxed for the British middleweight title after like 3 or 4 stoppages on cuts. You know, because then when you have a cut in a professional game, you've got to rebuild.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I lost 3 or 4 fights on cuts, but still within 3 years, I managed to get up to the British middleweight title, which is an odd. You know, there's some good fighters. You know what I mean? To box for that. So, and that's after so many setbacks as well. Do you know what I mean? So, but then, you know, I just kept going out and just enjoying myself, living the life.
Yeah, and what's it like back then, like when you first turned pro? Because like historically, it's like a ticket selling business, really, as well, isn't it? Was that a big part of it?
That's the same thing, yeah. But I mean, when I boxed for the British title, I sold 10 grand worth for tickets.
It's mental, that, isn't it?
And I'll manage myself.
Yeah.
I don't have a manager.
So what are you doing, like driving around, like dropping tickets off to people? and all
Yeah,
that?
but like when I first started fighting, I started fighting for Pat Brogan and Ron Gray. And you know, these promoters, they'll do anything if you can sell tickets.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Of course,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
They're supposed to look after you. And it's the same on all, you know, because you're their money.
Yeah, of course you
Do
are,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? So they want you on their show. That's why I was able to manage myself up to a British title fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's mental, isn't it?
Because I was one of the lads.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean? Because I was always in the pub, A bit like Ricky Hatton, a bit, you know what I mean?
Is that
Got
right?
a big following, like, you know what I mean? And so I had a big following because I was one of the lads, like.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And well, there's pros and cons to that, isn't it? It gets you so far, but then once you get up them levels, that Jack the Lad business can really knock you down, can't it?
You're right, mate.
But what's like when you turned pro? Was there a conscious effort in changing your training? Like you're still going to work, so you still
I was
like
still working
doing
and
thing.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was still. We got a big business, like, you know what I mean? So I was like, you know, working on
Proper working, yeah.
Like we used to work on a power station, taking the scrap out and all the metal and all the demolition and that. So I was in like charge of the site and stuff like that, and I had to be there on site like every morning for 8 o'clock and looked out finished till 5. And then and I'd do my road work before I'd get there.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So I'd do 5-mile run of the morning and then go to work on site all day. You know what I mean? And I'd be like burning, cutting girders and stuff like that, driving machinery and stuff. You know what I mean? It was hard
Proper
graft.
work, yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
You know
what I mean? And scrap trade, you know, the scrap business is hard graft.
And what's that like at that time? Is there a part of you just thinking, fuck this boxing stuff, like because this?
No, I still had a desire then.
Yeah,
you know
did,
what I mean?
yeah.
I had drive, like, and then I was doing door work as well. So I'd finish like the gym, and then I'd go and stand on the door.
So you're not even sleeping.
You know what I mean? So like, then I'd start to do the next. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I was knackered, like, really. But like, you know, it's what I did.
Yeah,
you know what I
of
mean?
course, yeah. But like turning pro like the early 90s, I'm assuming this is, right? So like what's training like? Because nowadays everyone's got a strength and conditioning coach and this coach, that coach. Like back then,
No,
what's happening?
I did none of that. I just all I did was do my road work and my circuit training and my sparring, my boxing, my pad work.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
simple
mean?
like old school
and
training.
fast bursts and stuff like that. You don't need all that, man.
But
You know
I'm with you. I've come around.
Everybody's different. I agree. We're all different.
Yeah.
But psychologically, half of it is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you do need. You have got to like eat the right food and the right diet and the right things and stuff like that. And it's always. I mean, you've got to leave no stone unturned. You've got to get the best out of yourself because we're all different. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And what's training suits one don't always suit another one.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for me, when I look back, I did too much running.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know what I mean? When I look back, I've done too much.
I think a lot of people did back in the day, though, didn't they? It was like get up in the morning and run a million miles, and that was it. You know what I mean? But like nowadays, a lot. I've had strength and conditioning coaches on here, and like they won't let their fighters run. They're like no running because of knees and whatever.
You know, they don't work because they do. Like,
of course,
different for training for different people.
Yeah.
People have got different requirements, ain't they?
They have, but I think sometimes nowadays, especially, it's like a lot of people overcomplicate it too, don't they? Like some of that old training you was doing, just running and doing your circuits, that's got a place in it. Do you know what I mean? That still reigns true.
Definitely, man.
But like when you're sort of what age turning pro? Early 20s, did you say?
Yeah, I was just gone 19.
19, so a kid, innit? Like, do you know what I mean? To be fighting
but
men.
I was fighting like as an amateur as well. I was boxing like Paul Busby, Seymour Johnson, who won the ABAs and stuff like that. I was fighting them when I was a kid. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know
was it bittersweet turning pro? You didn't go to the Olympics because of funding?
No, I wasn't bothered. All I was interested in was money.
Was that? Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because I'd boxed for England up that many times, and I'd got a pat on the back. I had great victories. You know what I mean? Fought the best in the world, Raymond Garby, knocked the German out, knocked the Bulgarian out. So I thought, well, I just want to earn as much as I can.
Right.
Money was more driven thing.
And especially, I think when you're like 19 and whatever, it seems like it feels like you're going to go on forever anyway, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean?
But, you know, I bought my own house when I was 22, paid for it.
Did you really? Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there ain't many could do that.
Nah.
You know what I mean? So with the work what I was doing and everything else and all, I was like slowly building myself up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I got you.
Know what I mean?
I got you. And the reason I ask about the age initially is because, like, obviously when you go through, it's weight governed sport, innit? Do you know what I mean? Like turning at 19 versus, say, your mid 20s. It's a different animal almost, isn't it? Like, how's the weight come into it for you? Did you turn pro at middleweight?
Yeah. I struggled to make 11.6. Like, I was weight drained for the Neville Brown fight. But you know, when you're like boxing for England, it's 75 kilos, which like is a bit higher. I think
it's 11.11. That is, yeah.
It's 11.11. But when I had to fight for the British middleweight title, I had to weigh another day and fight to the night.
Right.
And they changed the rule after.
Yeah.
Not long after.
That's rough on the body.
That was hard on me.
Yeah.
And I ain't saying I'd have won, but the fight would have been a different outcome. If I had to, because I had to run in the morning to make the weight. You know what I mean? To make the weight. And then weigh in the night. Then now you've got to fight 12 rounds after you've already run a few miles in the morning with all the sweat gear on as well.
That's hard.
And that's why the Board of Control changed the rule, because lots of boxers was getting hurt and weight drained and not, you know.
Your brain's got to be suffering as well, isn't
it? That's why the rule is changed now. I mean, that's just like these rehydration clauses and things like that. But when I did it, do you know what I mean? It was weighing on the day, fight of the night.
Yeah. And going through your career, did you like before you started going up weights and whatnot? What did you like? You're fighting at 11.6, but what did you weigh like normally when you're training?
I'd be like 12 and a half stone.
Yeah, so it's a big, and that's fit, I'm assuming, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like that's a big drop, isn't it?
Yeah. It was 12
and then as well, because like I touched on, there's no strength and conditioning coach. Like nowadays, I see people in gyms that are massive and like they've got a strength and conditioning coach or a nutritionist or whatever it is, and they've got a certain little system, and it just water cut and it drops off them, and they can do that. But like back then, you're just like starving, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I used to have to dry out.
Yeah.
You know
it's a
what I mean?
shit situation, that, isn't it?
It's
Anyone who's ever done that, that's terrible.
If you don't know what that's like, that's shit, man.
Yeah, it's
that's
horrible.
Hard, man. I advise anybody not to do it, to be honest. I mean, you know, it was harsh, man, and only eating little tiny bits I had to starve myself.
Yeah,
you know
and you're not drinking water, I'm assuming too, because
yeah,
that was one of the things.
You can't have a bit, can you? You know
yeah, I remember like, and
I was like weighing myself like about 10, 15 times a day.
Yeah, you get obsessed with it and all that.
If I had a shit, I'd go and weigh myself.
Yeah, right. Blow your nose, go weigh yourself.
Because it's like, you know, you've got to keep. I'm trying to watch it, keep it all the time.
Yeah.
Keep
Well, I say I've done as well is like put the tap on in the kitchen and like licking the tap and spitting the water and all kinds of madness. You know what I mean? And it's horrible, isn't it? It feels terrible. Like you go to bed, you like can't sleep and all that business.
Yeah,
but like when you're working and doing all that stuff, I was going to say it's probably a hindrance, but it might help in some way, right? Because you're physical all day, so at least you're keeping the weight and fit and whatnot.
But if you hadn't got to work, you could do. You know what I mean?
You could sleep and you could do other things, couldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, and you could put more time into it. So like the early part of being a professional was harder because I was working as well.
Right. At what point did it get to when you didn't have to work anymore? You could just be a pro.
I worked all the way through.
Oh, you did? You worked all the way through? Really? Yeah, that's mad, that, isn't it? Like the level you fought at, you're still working.
Yeah, I still worked all the way through, to be honest.
Okay, mental stuff, isn't it? Like, so, like, take us through your career a little bit for anyone who doesn't know. Like you said, after 3 losses with cuts and whatnot, you fighting for British titles.
Yeah, that was on BBC One. When I boxed for the British middleweight title, and I lost on a cut eye after 7 rounds. Neville Brown had just beat Frank Grant, who beat Harold Bobber Graham.
For anyone who doesn't know, look up Harold Graham.
I mean? And like so, it was Neville Brown. He's a great fighter. You know, I mean, friends. And it was his first defence, so he was at his best.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But I wore at my best.
Right.
Do you know
and
what I
again,
mean?
just touching on that, for anyone who doesn't know that, the British title, if you win it 3 times, you keep it forever, right? Win it outright. So the defences mean a lot.
But then after that, I was after going and spar with Nigel Benn. It's Nigel Benn. Nigel Benn was fighting in Italy for the world title against Galvano, and I went and I'd say, oh no, you know, I was asked. Dean Powell rung me up and said, "Do you want to spar with Nigel?" I said, "Yeah, of course. I'll get the experience that I need to the top level." That's why I agreed to it, like.
Right.
And I sparred with Nigel. I met Jimmy Tibbs. Jimmy Tibbs was a great guy. He said, you know what he said to me? He said, "God's going to use you one day." You know what I mean?
That's what we said.
No, honestly, I ain't joking. He said to me, he said, "Andy," he said, "God's going to use you one day." Jimmy had been a born-again Christian. Nigel had become a born-again Christian. And Jimmy said to me that God was going to use me, and I laughed at him.
Yeah.
And he asked me to, he said, like, you know, Jimmy's like stern, like, you know what I mean? And he's like, you know, he'd done 13 years in jail and stuff like that, and the Tibbses in London was known for different stuff. And I knew his background and that, like, and I liked him, man. I liked him, he was like my dad. You know what I mean? And he said to me, he says, "Will you come to a church with me tonight?" You know what I mean? And I said,
right,
honestly, and I says, "Yeah." And I went.
Where is it? Is this down in London, is it?
This was in Norwich.
Yeah. Oh, Norwich, okay.
Because Nigel was training the sports village in Norwich.
Right, I got you, okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
I think it's still there.
Yeah, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's your thinking at this point? Like, you're born a Christian now, but we'll come on to that. But at the point,
I just thought, I don't know what he's on about.
Yeah,
I thought he
I mean.
was talking mad, like.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and but like, I went to the church with Jimmy. You know, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the sparring with Nigel. It was a learning experience. And then we just parted our ways, like. You know what I mean? And then after the British title, I was asked to go and spar with Chris Eubank. He was on his world tour.
Really?
And I was like sparring with Chris a lot of the time. When I sparred with Nigel, I was younger. And then when I sparred with Chris, I was a bit older and I was a bit more seasoned. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got a bit more experience because I'd already, you know, I'd been a pro longer. And I was Chris's main sparring partner on his world tour.
That's right. There's a famous interview in there where he says that you tell it. I'll butcher it, won't I? What did he say about you
He said,
on
I'd
TV?
like to thank Andy Flute for sparring with me.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, because he asked me, he said, "Andy," he said, "You've helped me that much." He said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" I said, "Chris just mentioned me after one of your fights."
That's good, isn't it? Yeah, that's nuts.
Well, I don't know how he remembered.
And he did it, yeah. So fair play to him, he did it, yeah.
And you know what? I don't care what anybody says about him. He treated me well, man.
Yeah.
Do Do you know what I mean? Right, look, I know he's a bit eccentric and that, but, you know, he was firm but fair.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he gave me brand new Adidas boots and stuff like that, and you know, and Ronnie Davies was like a great influence as well. But Chris said to me, like he said, you're one of the best sparring partners I've ever had.
Did he? Yeah.
And he said you'll be a world champion.
Oof.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And Barry, he told Barry Hearn, and Barry Hearn come to the gym from Romford to watch me spar with Chris.
It's mad that, isn't it? Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Now there was other sparring partners. The first time I went, like obviously I did it on my own, but there was other sparring partners because I was there all the while, and they wouldn't. I ain't gonna mention no names, but they wouldn't sticky.
Right.
Chris would put them down.
Yeah,
and
right.
he'd stand over them like that and he'd go, get up. You know what I mean? Because it was that brutal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was that hard, and a lot of them they just packed in and just said, "I ain't putting up with this."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But me, I stuck it like.
What was the sparring like with him? Did he stick it on you? Was it hard?
Honestly. Every time,
right?
He hit you hard every time, and he tried to take you out every day. And Ron said he's got this thing about putting all his sparring partners down. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a famous story that he's told, isn't he, about Harold Graham? Have you heard? I'm sure you've heard this one, right? Touching on Harold Graham again. He said, "Oh, he's by Harold as well." We'll get into that because I want to hear that. But he said like Harold Graham basically he couldn't lay a glove on him for 3 days, and he lit him with one shot and knocked him spark out. And like, it's a famous story. It's not my story, obviously.
I sparred Harold Graham as well.
Did you? What was that like? Because people say, for anyone who doesn't know who Harold Graham is, a lot of people will say he's one of, if not the best British fighter to ever not win a world title.
Just like a typical slippery, slidey, you know what I mean? It's frustrating sparring with him, but I just stay close and they give him no room.
Right,
you know
right.
You know what I mean? I just stuck straight close on him. I let him pick me off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just stayed on top of him. I closed him down. I know he was older. Then like he wore the same, you know what I mean? Because he was a bit older.
He's a bit,
You know what I mean? But like I don't really have a problem.
Yeah. Is that right?
Honestly,
just marauding sort of.
I don't really have a problem.
Yeah. What was he like? Was he a strong guy, a puncher or anything?
Not really.
No.
He wasn't. I like. You know, what a problem for me.
Yeah, more of a slickster sort of thing.
Just like if I'd have stood off him, he'd have picked me head off.
Yeah, right,
you know right. But like I had to take a few, like to land a few.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But if you got a tight guard and you just march forward and don't give him no in, like, you know what I mean? So that's why I sparred with him. But with sparring with Chris and other stuff, like Nigel and stuff like that, them bigger punchers.
They were bigger punchers.
You know what I mean? Them stronger men.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Chris Eubank's a beast of a guy, man. When you're in close with him, you can feel his strength.
Can you? Yeah. Well, he fought cruiserweight as well, didn't he, against Carl Thompson, which is mental. Like that's big.
He's like really, really strong, like.
Really?
You know what I mean? Yeah. You know what I mean? And he's granite. He's granite, like. You know what I mean? I find Chris harder sparring than Nigel, to be honest.
Did you? Yeah.
You know
is that just a style thing for you?
But he's just a stronger guy.
Bigger man, definitely.
You know what I mean? Even though, but at the time, it's timing. I was younger when I sparred with Nigel.
Okay.
And I was a bit more professional.
Yeah.
When I sparred with Chris, so I was a bit better myself.
Gotcha.
I'd come on a bit better. So, but between the two of them, them on par with each other.
Were they? Yeah. Because I've said to you said to me as well about that. I was lucky enough to see Nigel at the weekend when at my mate's gym. He was there and whatnot, and it struck me. And this is not a dig in any way. Obviously, it's more of a compliment. But like, it struck me how small he was for someone who fought a super middleweight. Like I'm stood next to him. If anything, I'm a little bit bigger than him. And like Chris Eubank, I've not trained with, but I've met in person, and he is quite a big, imposing figure, isn't he? And I don't think people talk about that enough. Like obviously, them two have got battles, but he's significantly bigger, Eubank.
But Nigel used to go low.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like low, where Chris was a bit, you know, like stronger, but Nigel used to go low.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Bobbing and weaving, he's hard to hit, you know what I mean?
Who's a better fighter, if I stick you on the spot?
I couldn't really. They're both on par with each other because the way Chris beat Nigel the first time, fair enough, but the way Nigel come back in the second fight and showed, you know, plus Nigel went to America and done all that as well, you know what I mean, as well. So that shows your character as well.
Big time.
But you know what I mean. But I call pick. You know, they both got different strengths, if you know what I mean.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're both on par with each other. But Chris is a tougher, stronger guy, but like Nigel's an harder hitter.
Yeah.
But Chris is stronger. Do you know what I mean? I've done more with Chris. I've got to have done like about 200 rounds with Chris.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a lot.
That's a lot of fucking rounds, isn't it?
That's a lot. And I'm telling you now, right, I looked in the camera, I'd have a night off the drink.
Is that right?
I drank every single night. Ronnie Davies said to me, Andy, why don't you stop drinking? He says, you can be a world champion. Barry Hearn come from Matchroom to watch me spar. And the very first day, Chris just stood there and Dave throw a punch. So I throw a punch. Because he just tried to draw me in, because Aaron was
waiting
watching.
on you. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then the next round he tried to knock me out.
Nice of him, wasn't it?
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So I just you know, done what you had to do.
Yeah.
All the press was there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then Ron goes, Andy, Barry wants to offer you a contract. Do you know what I mean?
Yo.
He wants to offer you a deal. He said, you know, he said, Chris, he's singing your praises. He's saying you could be world champion. You know what I mean? Because I was, you know, I was young, a bit younger than them.
Right, yeah.
But like I said, I kept going out, and then because I'd already fought for a British title, lost gallantly. Like I only lost on a cut eye. Then I was up there, like sort of thing. And I was sparring with Ben and Eubank and all that. And then I thought I'd made it myself in my own head.
Right.
My head got too big for myself. I got too big for my boots, and I thought I'd made it before I'd made it. Then I got Hearn after me, so you know, offering me to sign on the dotted line, promising me this and promising me that, and you can be the next this, you can be the next Chris Eubank, you can be the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and it went to my head, and I thought I'd made it before I'd made it, and
Right.
but obviously I kept going out, drinking, partying, and stuff like that. And obviously, if anybody's watching, don't burn the candle at both ends like I did. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I did do that, and I could have done a lot better. You know what I mean? But I here to like say, you know, it's my choice. That's what I did.
It's your journey at the end of the day,
you know,
innit? That's how it goes.
I had good times.
Yeah, right. Enjoy it too. Yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, but then I was asked to go and spar with Joe Calzaghe, and I did that as well. And I sparred Henry Wharton, I sparred Richie Woodall, I sparred Seven Odker and Marcus Bayer. I fought them as well. You know what I mean?
Everyone, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I
Sven
mean?
Oakley, that's a name that doesn't get enough credit, I think,
mate,
right? For his...
I had him. I won the first round
Right.
against Odker. Then the ref kept taking points off me because I was going to beat him. Honestly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Honestly. Then I fought Bayer in Vienna. Zelko Mavrovic, an heavyweight, who fought Lennox Lewis, was top of the bill. I fought him in Vienna, and I cut him. But obviously I was weight drained because they was going to take a lot of money off me, so I had to sit in the sauna before the fight. You know what I mean?
It's a dirty business boxing, isn't it?
Yeah, but when I went over and sparred with him, because I hadn't got to drain no weight, I caught him, because he's a southpaw Bayer was, I caught him with the right hand and put him down.
In sparring.
I
bet you like that one, right?
Then they put me in and sparred him again.
Yeah, of course, right, that's how it goes.
And there was a guy over there, his dad was named Zora Foley. There was a guy over there named Foley, and he witnessed it. And his dad had fought Muhammad Ali. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he went, man, he said, yeah, just put that on him as well. But I sparred with all of them as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's mad, isn't it? Two names there you mentioned, like Joe Calzaghe, which we'll come to, obviously,
yeah.
because probably, if not one of definitely the greatest British fighters ever, isn't he? But Sven Oakley as well, because a lot of people wouldn't know who he is, but he was undefeated world champion, super middleweight. But he goes under the radar. How good was he?
He was good. He was very. I thought he was better than Bayer, to be honest.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. And he was very, very like. He had like 200 odd amateur fights as well, and boxing, you know, because when they were in Germany, they're paid, ain't they?
Yeah, of course they are, yeah.
They're paid, they're on sponsorship and stuff like that. But I just lost on points to him, like, but I really, you know, I don't think he was all that special.
Well, the knock on him was like that he couldn't punch, right? People used to say he had no power.
Yeah, he couldn't punch now, but his work rate was good.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I fought a guy named Lefty Keski as well, who'd had Angelo Dundee in his corner. Frank Maloney won me up. And then he fought Bayer for the world title. Frank Maloney rung me up and said, Andy, I've got you to fight. I said, no, it's short notice. I said, oh, okay. I said, who is he? He said, Lefty Keski. He said, okay. I said, yeah, I'll take you. You know what I mean? And Angelo Dundee come walking out with him.
You know
what I mean?
That's an experience in itself, isn't it?
He'd had 22 fights and won every one. Like. But when I said Angelo Dundee, my dad went, don't worry about him. We ain't fighting him. We're fighting him.
It's true. Got a good point, isn't it?
Don't take no notice of that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Did you get much chance to talk to him, Angelo?
No, I just said hello.
Oh, right. I was going to say, because that's like, obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, Muhammad Ali's trainer. So, like,
I just lost on points over 8-3s. It was a short notice thing. You know
that's
what I mean?
How it goes, isn't it, man?
You know what I mean? But, like, by that time, I wasn't bothered, like, you know what I mean? But sparring with all them greats, like, I ain't bragging, but I could hold my own with them, no problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I could hold my own with anybody.
Is that right? Yeah. What was Calzaghe like? How good was he?
Joe Calzaghe, I'm still friends with him now. He's wrote in my book for me. I'm still friends with him. Joe Calzaghe has wrote the forward in that for me. And Joe Calzaghe was like, his work rate and there ain't no one can touch him.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And his southpaw style. And I went to that little shed of a gym in Wales.
Millbridge, right?
You know what I mean? On my own. I mean, you know what I mean? I had nobody with me. I just drove down. They contacted me. I was like, yeah, you want to spar with Joe? Yeah, you know what I mean? You know, so I just drove down. Just, you know, and I'd have a day to settle in. I just got in the ring, you know what I mean? And sparred him like. But, man, you couldn't get out the road of the punches.
Is that right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was hard, man. You know what I mean? He was by far, for me, But it's at different levels. Like I was a bit older then again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I was sparring with Chris, I was probably in my prime a bit more.
Right,
I mean? When I was sparring with Nigel, I was a bit younger.
Yeah.
When I was sparring with Joe, I was probably I wasn't bothered so much.
Right, I got you.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Joe, you know, his work rate was just, and people said he slapped and stuff like that, but you know. I mean,
he slaps hard if he slaps.
but like, you know, you could get out the road of the
Yeah.
punches. Like, you know, he's definitely the best out there.
Is he? Yeah. And how big was he, Joe Calzaghe? We talk about size.
Yeah, he's like 6 foot, ain't he?
Is
Like,
he?
You know what I mean? But he was just so fast.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's so fast, and you know. What he done to Jeff Lacey, he just destroyed him, David.
Amazing, yeah.
But that's because he feared him.
And people forget what Jeff Lacey was at the time as well, don't they?
Well, they was building him up like to be like the next Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Like,
he was going up to heavyweight at one point. They was talking all kinds of madness, weren't they?
Joe absolutely ruined his career.
Yeah.
Do you know what
He
I
was
mean?
never the same after that, was he? He was never the same.
But I think, like, you know, Joe would have beat anybody. His work rate. You know what I mean? But you know, I sparred with everybody. Henry Wharton as well. He fought Nigel and Chris. He was another big puncher. There's lots. I sparred with everybody, but you know, we fought everybody in the 90s. You know what I mean?
Did you ever get in there with what was the other fella, the bald fella, Glenn Clatley?
Yeah, I fought Glenn Clatley.
Oh, you fought Glenn Clatley?
I fought Glenn Clatley to week's notice.
How good was he?
He's a good fighter, but he don't bother me like.
Right.
You know
okay.
I mean? But I had a week to get ready. Frank Warren's matchmaker rung me up, because Joe Calzaghe's opponent had pulled out, and they offered me a IBF Intercontinental title fight, 12-rounder. And the agent I was using at the time, Terry Toole, he said, Andy, how fit am you? And I went, I've just been ticking over. He said, I've got a fight here for you. He said, do you want to fight Glenn Catley on a Sky Sports show? 12-rounder. I said, I'll take you. Do you know what I mean? And he said, how heavy am you? And I said, about 13 stone. Do you know what I mean? And I weighed me and I was 12'10". Do you know what I mean? And then I had to be under the 12 stone limit in a week.
Yeah.
But I did it.
Yeah.
And I fought him. And I was, you know, when I was doing all right, but I got cut again.
Cuts a theme here, common theme here, isn't it?
Joe Calzaghe was commentating on it. He said, I'll give Andy Flute a chance against him. He said, but it's at short notice. You know what I mean?
Short, I mean, it's short, because that's another thing I think people don't get.
Well, I took lots of I fought Robin Reed at short notice.
Right.
You know what I mean? I fought Glenn Catley at short notice.
Yeah.
Now I could have my own with him, no problem, at short notice. But nobody wanted to give me any notice.
Nah.
When I was supposed to fight Dean Francis, but they wouldn't give me no notice. Then I was supposed then Brian McGee, they wouldn't give me no notice. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't give me no notice to fight him. Like when I fought Robin Reed, they wouldn't give me no notice to fight. You know, they only give me like 10 days to get ready. Do you know what I mean? Nobody would give me a proper, you know, the notice.
Yeah, well, as I said before, it's a dirty business, isn't it? They'll take any advantage they can. Because being fit, you know this better than me, right? Like being fit versus getting in peak shape. You can be as fit as you like. You're not in fight shape, right?
No.
Like it's an extra little turn of the screw, isn't it?
Right, but honestly, I was drinking all the way through my career.
Right.
You know what I mean, because I did it. I liked the nightlife, and I did it. And I don't know. I don't agree with it no more, but I managed to do it. And Ronnie Davis goes to me, Andy, I don't know how you do it. You can go out and drink all night, then get in the ring and spar with Chris. He said, if you just imagine what you could do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Did you just getting away with it because of age? Could you just get away with it at the time?
I was used to drinking.
Right.
If somebody don't drink, you can't do it.
No.
Because your body gets used to it.
Your body adapts to anything, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
And I was just used to it. And Ronnie said to me, Andy, what are you, knuckle down? And I just said to Ron, I said, Ron, I'm doing my job, ain't I? Ron said, Andy, you could be world champion. Do you know what I mean? And then I signed for Earn. And I lost my first fight for Earn.
Right. Who was that against?
Because I should have not mentioned it. Because because I kept going out.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And that caught up with me, and that knocked me about. Do you know what I mean? And then I was like, I went to the path lab and had my blood tested, and I got too much excessive muscular load. I'd got a substance in my blood called urea.
Okay.
And that's caused by too much excessive. You know what I mean? So I'm burning the candle at both ends.
Is that like the old rhabdomyosis they call it or something?
Yeah, but
right?
I was burning the candle at both ends.
Okay. Yeah, of course. You can only do it for so long, can't you?
My body couldn't take it.
Yeah. And you said earlier about your prime, like when you was with Eubank and all that.
Yeah.
For you, like it's obviously it differs for everyone, but what ages do you see was your sort of best?
About 27.
Really? So young, still pretty young, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was on his sparring partner. I could hold his own with Chris.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could stand with Chris 5 days a week. Do you know what I mean? And I'd been drinking the night before. You know what I mean? And I don't know how I did it. It was probably the fear as well.
Right.
Like, because you know what I mean? When you fear somebody, you makes you, you know what I mean? It makes you fight better.
Definitely, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know how I did it. I ain't saying it's the right thing to do, but it's what I did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could have done a lot better, yeah, but it don't matter.
No,
You know what I mean?
you didn't, so it don't matter.
It
Yeah.
don't matter. I had over 100 amateur fights. It don't matter. You know what I mean?
I got you.
I've been in the ring with everybody. It don't matter. I'm all right now. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's
You
it.
know
Well,
what I
you say that like Ricky Hatton obviously was famous for going out and whatever.
I've been out with Ricky Hatton in Tennessee.
That's what I was going to ask you. Have you ever had a night out with Ricky?
We've been out partying together. And he already said to me, he said, Andy, he said, I looked up to you. He said, when he was boxing for England, an amateur, he said, I looked up to you.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Honestly, he did. I ain't joking.
Because he had trouble with cuts and all. And
Yeah,
he said, I'm sure you've heard it, he said that when I think he was done fighting, he had an operation to see if it could help him out, and they found he had Vaseline underneath his eye. Have you heard this one?
No, but I had to have an operation as well. I had to go to Harley Street.
Right.
Because what I did, I had one fight, and the doctor stitched me up on the night. You know, the doctor stitched you up on the night, and I just let the doctor stitch me up, and he stitched the cut up wrong.
Yeah.
And Dean Powell arranged for me to go to Harley Street and pay for this operation, otherwise my career would have been finished, because the doctor on the night stitched me up wrong.
Wow.
So if anybody's watching this and the doctor wants to stitch you up on the night, this guy named Patrick Whitfield, and he worked at Harley Street. I don't know if he's doing it now, he's too old, but he always said, go to hospital for your stitches.
Right, okay.
You know what I mean? So if there's any other fighters in here, I'm watching this, always go to your hospital for the stitches.
Right.
Because the doctors on the night made a mess of mine.
Is that right? Well, I think that's what Ricky was saying himself. He said that they left Vaseline in it, so over time it crystallises and it's sharp.
Because mine was like a jagged thing that stitched it the day I put it in place, so it was like a lump. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's not good.
It had to be undone and placed back in, like, you know.
Yeah, like
and
neatly,
then, and then done properly again.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know. But all the way through my career, I suffered with cuts.
Yeah.
It's saying I did all right, you know what I mean? But I was never knocked out, you know what I mean, or anything like that.
Yeah.
Nobody ever stopped me, like, because of, you know what I mean?
No.
You know what I mean? I was known for, like, having a good chin. And you can't, like, I just got that from my dad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can't train that.
Yeah.
You're either tough or you weigh.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think so.
Yeah, I was. My dad was tough, and the reason I could take punches and was a tough guy was because of my genes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think a part of boxing as well, in any kind of combat, is your personality has to have a bit of a dictate your style a little bit, right?
Mate,
you can't be who you're not.
I was tough on the street.
That's what I'm getting at.
I was a fighter, man. I was like, you know what I mean? I was known. When I was at school, I was cock of the school in the third year.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I was known for stuff. And I get like I was a debt collector. I was an enforcer. I was doing all sorts of stuff because I was known for my toughness. And I was known for like somebody not to mess with. Do you know what I mean? And I don't live that life now more. But I did have that criminal background. At one stage, when I was coming away from the scrap business, I was like a career criminal.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And money was my god because I had that much of it as well. Do you know what I mean? And so I looked at other people who were in boxing, and there was like champions and things like that, who were boxing for world titles. But I used to think, well, they got as much money as me.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was all bothered.
Yeah.
I was all bothered because all I was interested in was money.
Yeah. And did you get to a point in your career where you sort of almost like fuck boxing a little bit?
That's why I went on like a losing spree, taking fights at short notice. Because when I fought David Starry, I just was interested. I just took it for the money to help. You know what I mean? Just to pay for my wedding.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's funny. That's funny. It's not funny at the time,
but that's the truth. When they offered me to fight Glenn Catley and Robbie Reed, I said, yeah, okay. Even though I ain't like getting in there at my best. You know what I mean? I just
still take it, yeah.
I just took it for the money.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I amassed that much money. Do you know what I mean? And like they can keep the world title. I was interested in money.
Yeah, I hear that.
You know
I hear that. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was my goal. That's why I reached my potential because I did reach my potential with the money side of things.
Yeah. So like sitting here now, like obviously grown man, like past your boxing career and whatnot. Do you believe you could have been a world champion if you'd got your head down?
I do believe so. Yeah, I do believe I was up there with them. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, if Chris Eubank thanks you like live on, you know, when I was sparring with him, he just sparred with Joe, sparred with, you know what I mean, and everybody else. I mean, you know, I ain't gonna mention names, but some champions, I had the better of them. Do you know what I mean? And I wore at my best.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And that's the truth. Yeah, I could have done. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because I was like Ben and Eubank, I'm like, you know, holding it on with him and Joe and stuff like that. And you know, today I'd have been a champion easy.
Yeah, right. You've got a lot of options nowadays.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the boxing back then was harder than what you know what I mean?
Well, I tell you another thing that doesn't, like, people talk about how it's easier in certain ways, but one thing they don't really talk about is how a lot of boxers now, they've got the luxury of turning pro and being a full-time pro. Like, you was on a scrapyard all day. Like, that's a big deal, isn't it? You know what I mean? That takes it out of you. You know what I mean? Especially you're coming up against guys from different countries that have got a promoter behind them and whatnot. And they ain't got to worry about that. They go home and rest, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. But, you know, I ain't got no regrets, man. I'm all right now, and that's all that matters.
That's good, man. That's nice. That's a nice place to be, though, isn't it?
And it's great to be able to say, you know, that I've been in the ring with so many legends and that as well, like, you know, and I held my own. I like fold like some people did. You know what I mean? You know, there was other people that folded. I don't even fold to nobody.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, they say that about I can't remember the guy's name, but he's not that I'm trying to knock him, but he fought Canelo, English guy. He got done with a body shot and he was like smiling at the crowd. I reckon he was the happiest man to ever got knocked out. Then he took his paycheck and went home. Do you know what I mean? Like, but you obviously weren't like that. You were happy with going up.
I was known for my toughness, and like there ain't no way you're stopping me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I went over to Vienna, I went over to Germany, I went everywhere. Like I went, you know, and nobody put me. Like I was known for toughness, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I carried that like outside the ring as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what, you know, that's the way I conducted myself and run my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You are who you are at the end of the day, innit? You've got to be who you are.
We're all different individuals,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But I was known for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's good, man. But like, if you go back to like when you was in your prime, like sparring with the Eubanks, and you said you're drinking all the time, did you realise you had a problem, or was it just like
no? I just liked it.
Yeah. So it wasn't like you weren't thinking this is bad here, but
from when I started, even at Crystal Palace, when I was training when I was 18, I was drinking. Right. I was in the thing after. You know what I mean? I was having a few drinks. Do you know what I mean? And then like all the way through my schoolboy career and stuff like that, and everything else, I started going into the pubs when I was like 15 and stuff like that as well. You know, trying to get in pubs, trying to get served. And this where we am today, now in this gym. This used to be a nightclub.
Right, okay.
I come in here when I was 15 years old.
in here? It's funny, isn't it?
Place.
In this
There we
place.
are now. This place was called Chances in Dudley.
Wow,
you know what I mean?
okay.
And this was a nightclub. You know what I mean? And I just liked it, man. You know what I mean? I was just enjoying myself. I was a young lad, enjoying myself. You know what I mean? I liked the women. I had a taste for the women. I loved women. You know what I mean? I'd go away on holiday and just sleep with as many people as I could. You know what I mean? Just to have a laugh and have fun. Yeah. You know what I mean? And, you know, just great memories, man. I ain't got no bad memories. Like, only when the drink caught up with me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And when was that? When did you start noticing it and feeling like it was an issue?
Well, obviously, drink followed me all the way through my career. Do you know what I mean? Then when I retired, well, I bought a pub as well, and then they help. Do you know what I mean?
They help with it,
You know what I mean? But I made that much money at this pub. Do you know what I mean? I had John Conti that come down there. I had Joe Calzaghe come down there. But what I started doing, selling beer, wholesales. I'd buy like 200 or 300 barrels of beer every week and sell them to other pubs. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
And I was making a fortune.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I was honestly. Then I was into everything else. I was into all the criminal side of things as well. I don't really want to talk too much about it, but I was into everything. I was into stolen plant machinery, JCBs, motorway service, stealing lorries off. I had a gang of people, you know, I had overhead cranes where you'd drive a lorry in and cut the arm off it, the eye off it, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And cash was my king, that's it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And by the time, you know, I was in my early, you know, I'd got lots and lots of money. I'd got over $1 million quid. I was like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
What age was you retiring from boxing?
But I knocked Errol McDonald out. And I should have had another title fight then. That was about when I was about 28. And Richie Woodall beat McDonald on points. Mark Baker beat him on points, and they had Commonwealth title fights. But they did what I did to him. Do you know what I mean? But I war with a proper, like a good promoter.
Yeah.
So I just concentrated on my business with the pub and that.
It's young still, isn't it? It's like 28.
Yeah,
like...
but because I've started so long, you know, I've been in the boxing so long, like.
Was you ready to get out?
Yeah, I war bothered, like then. You know what I mean? I war bothered.
How was your body though? Because obviously you're a fit man now, but at the time
I was still okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was still like I said, I'd done an exhibition fight with Nigel Benn when I was 42.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that was at the height of my addictions. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, you still in it then?
Yeah, I was real bad alcoholic and drug addict. Yeah. I was on 5 grams of cocaine a day then.
Wow, that's a lot, isn't it?
That's heavy duty. I blew 150 grand in 3 months on crack cocaine.
Shit.
That's the truth. Anybody watching, I'm telling you now. All that money, what I made all that money to wasted all.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you told me before, last time we spoke, you was in prison for a while as well.
Yeah,
right?
I've done a few prison sentences.
Yeah.
You know
What was that during the boxing career, or was this after?
That was after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Life has a funny way of coming round sometimes. You know what I mean? Yeah, I went to prison quite a few times. I was lucky not to go more. Do you know what I mean? And some of the stuff that I did do, I'd still be in jail now.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, I ain't bothered. I can sit here today and I know God's forgiven me for that. And I've repented and I've got a clean slate today. Do you know what I mean? But the alcoholism took me to hell and back.
Is this when you was in prison as well? Were you alcoholed up in there?
I was on heroin and Subutex in prison. A day of the alcohol, then in prison I was offered some hooch and that. But I day take it because I knew that was my problem.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So I just alternated for someone else.
Oof. And what's that like, being on heroin in prison?
You're just trying to kill the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're just trying to, because you know what I mean? You're just getting off your head.
Right,
just to kill the time.
Yeah.
That's all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What was your body like at this point? Because you see people on it, they waste away, they go like 8 stone.
They waste away. I went to the gym and stuff like that, and I went to the Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and stuff like that, and I went to the chapel. Do you know what I mean? While I was in prison and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I went, I was like still, but I was always trying, like, you know what I mean? And then, I always had that voice in my head, have a bit of this, have that, and this, and that, and this, and that. And I've got like an addictive nature.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the prisons, they let me.
Did they? Okay.
You know
Do you feel like you needed them?
The first time I went, I didn't care. Like, I told the screw, I said, if you don't give me a cell on my own, I'll beat my pad mate up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he knew I would have, like, because they knew I was.
Right,
Do you know what I mean? And they give me a cell on my own. But then the second time I went, I thought, I don't like this. You know what I mean? And then the third time I went, I thought, I had a guy coming again.
Yeah.
I mean,
Is that right?
I don't like it then. But everything had started to, everything had started to go downhill by then. I was starting to like split up with my missus and stuff like that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'd got properties abroad, you know what I mean, and other things and everything else, and I was into all sorts of that much stuff. But what was my addictions was getting the better of me.
Right.
Where they did nearly strip me of everything.
Yeah. And when you were at the height of addictions, like what's a day like? Is it just consumed by got to get what you got to get?
Yeah, you just got to. You got the height of my addiction. I couldn't. The only time I wasn't drinking, is when I was asleep.
Really?
I've never been drunk for 2 months non-stop.
Oof.
Just lying, just pissing myself, not shaving, just drinking, swigging out of a bottle. And I remember once sicking into a glass, pure vodka, and I just drank the sick to give me the strength to get to the shop, because I was a shivering alcoholic wreck.
And what was the thinking there? Because that's got alcohol in it.
Like that tough guy what fought all them people and all that. That wore him.
Yeah.
I was a shivering alcoholic. I was too scared to look at myself. I was a shivering alcoholic wreck. It stripped me of everything.
Oof.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I tried to take my own life a few times because I couldn't cope with what I'd become.
Really?
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
And what's that like? What did you do? If you don't mind me asking.
Now I can talk about it now because I've come through it all. Like, but I was a coward then, and I thought, should I jump off a building? Should I jump under the train? I should lie there shivering, shaking, and so I just I got loads and loads of tablets and just, took them and just.
You did take them. You did take them. Yeah.
I was fine, and I took to the hospital, and somebody found me, and they pumped a solution into me, and it saved my life. And I see the crisis team in the hospital, and they come round to me, and they just says, "You need to pull yourself together. There's worse people with worse problems than you." Well, to an alcoholic, that's like a red flag to a bull. You don't want to hear that's like resentment. Mm-hmm. So I just got and went back out, started drinking again.
Did you? Yeah, straight back on it.
Yeah.
And what is? There's obviously physical withdrawals going on here as well. You're shaking, you're doing your thing.
Yeah. The only way I could stop drinking is when my body stopped me.
Right.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
I'd be like spewing blood out, and then I'd be like tipping vodka down me at the same time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I remember once being stranded in Tenerife. I broke my back, and I was on my family had to leave me, and I was walking around 2 weeks with a drunk for a broken back, and the only way I got sober was somebody who knew me locked me in their apartment. To save my life.
Yeah.
A girl named Dawn Garbett. They locked me in their apartment, and that saved my life. That is, I was crawling the walls. Do you know what I mean? Trying to get out.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get out. I'm telling you, man, it just brings back memories, man. I tell you, it's painful stuff. It's a different pain. You can stand that pain in the boxing, but that sort of pain is mental pain.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And honestly, man, it's horrendous, man. It was so bad It was bad. It was really bad. You know what I mean? But I'm okay today. So,
yeah, you're here now and thriving now, aren't you, mate? You're thriving now.
Yeah.
But like you said, you broke your back. Like, sorry, before you said that, before I forget, you said you were sick in a glass and you drank the sick. And what's the thinking there? Is that just to get alcohol back in your system?
Well, what it is, I noticed that I hadn't got no more drink.
Right.
So, and I was too scared to go out to the shop. Do you know what I mean? And I was like going, I was wrenching like that. And I just wrenched and I sicked into a pint glass. And it was like got all bits in it and everything and all the stuff like that. It was like pure vodka because that's what I was drinking.
Right.
Vodka. And I drank that and I got myself together and I was like just, put a hood over my head and just get to the shop and get, just get scared, shivering alcoholic wreck. I wore that tough Andy Flute who fought everybody.
Yeah.
I was just a shivering, just alcoholic, drunken mess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And was you trying to hide? Because obviously you're well known around here, right?
Yeah,
Was you like trying to hide?
Yeah, I'd like just get to the shop and then just get myself secluded and then just sit in a room and isolate and just drink and drink and drink.
All alone?
Alone, not with women, nothing.
Yeah,
you know
I mean? Bad place to be, innit?
Yeah,
at that point,
just
fuck
drink
me.
and drink, then pass hard, drink, pass hard, drink, pass hard, drink, pass hard. That's how it was.
That's how it got.
I tried everything. I tried anti-abuse tablets. I tried George Best. Tried anti-abuse. I tried everything. I went to rehab. I tried everything. Nothing worked. I was stabbed. I was run over. I had everything you name. Broken back. All the wrong anything. I should have been dead ages ago. I had that many accidents, crashes in cars, and you know what I mean. And honestly, I don't know how I'm alive today.
Yeah. And what's the broken back situation? How'd you end up breaking your back?
I fell through a roof.
Drunk?
Yeah. I was trying to take a shortcut across thing, and I fell into a shop, and the police come and everything. You know what I mean? And the alarms went off on the shop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was in Tenerife.
Oh, in Tenerife, not even here.
I was taking a shortcut across. Like I climbed over a balcony, and I like instead of walking all the way around, and there was some steps, and I've got to walk across a roof. You know what I mean? And I landed in the shop, set all the alarms off. The police come, the ambulance come, and that. They took me to the hospital in Tenerife. And I just pulled everything off and then just went back out and started drinking. You know
with a broken back, not realising.
With a broken back, I don't know. I was that drunk.
Yeah.
I was that drunk.
Honestly.
Honestly.
That's mad, isn't it? Yeah.
Honestly, man.
They got to make a film about your life, haven't they? That's a goer.
I don't know about that, but I have had people contact me and saying that it's come. I've had a documentary made by CBN.
Yeah.
I mean, I had an interview from Michigan in the USA, and they've done it, and that's going to be aired out pretty soon.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Well, any links, mate, we'll put them in and
you
stuff
know what I mean?
below.
But, it's honestly, anybody suffering with addiction, man, it was really, really. I'm just glad. You know what? Forget everything else. Just to be normal and be sober, and sitting here today and be able to talk about my boxing career and how I've come through it and things like that. That's enough for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm happy with just being normal today.
Yeah,
You know
that's good though, isn't it, man?
I mean, great just to talk about these things. You know what I mean? And sharing the rings with some of these greats. It was a great time, great memories. I ain't got no bad times of that.
Right.
The only bad times I've got is all the trauma that I've put myself through because of the wrong choices that I made. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Nobody made me drink.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
right.
Do you know what I mean? But it's what I like doing.
Yeah.
And then it spiraled, and like anything, nobody goes. You don't just turn into an alcoholic. It's over a period of time.
Right.
When your body's had a psychological and physical change, there's no operation in the world what can change you.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? The only way is because then it sets a chemical off called acetone, and that you can't stop. Do you know what I mean? Now there's different types of alcoholics. There's some who can function, and some can do the job, and I'm an alcoholic and stuff like that. But it got to the stage where I was boxing and I was an alcoholic. You know what I mean? I was sparring with Chris Eubank. I was an alcoholic, I'd say, but I was like functioning alcoholic. So I didn't have a night off the drink, not one. And you can ask Ronnie Davis. You know what I mean? I've met up with Ron recently. You know what I mean? And he said, Andy, he said, I don't know how you did what you did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then, alcohol comes in different forms. You know what I mean? And then we have in the pub as well. That day help. You know what I mean?
Of course, it's always available, isn't it? Ready available.
Yeah, and then, and then having loads and loads of money as well. Do you know what I mean? So like I'd got to the top of the tree with money-wise, but I was lost.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I'd got properties abroad, I'd got houses, I'd got everything, I'd got everything. Do you know what I mean? But I was lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
Can't fill that hole, can you?
No, I kept trying to fill it with drink, drugs, everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you know what, I'm just glad to be out of it, mate.
Yeah,
you know
good on you, man. And you got your book out now and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Tell us the name of your book, mate. We'll put the links below.
I wrote this book, it's in my corner. I wrote it with pen and paper, just trying to self-help myself.
Really? So it wasn't planned to write a book. It was more for you.
No. I met a new girl, and they said, "When do you start writing? Some of the world champions you've been in the ring with," because I was a shivering, alcoholic, drunken, druggy mess. And they went, "You are this man." I said, "You're not this man." Do you know what I mean? And I got in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I started, and I stop, because in addiction, it's stop, start.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I remember once doing 6 months, and like, I thought I was all right. Do you know what I mean? And then, but I had a voice in my head all the time. Have a drink.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was be fighting it all the time. Do you know what I mean? And I just, every time I had a drink, then was like a breakdown.
Right.
And I wrote that book I got my scrapbooks out and I started writing bits of paper, and it turned into a book. I don't know I was going to ever finish it. I don't know I was ever going to be sober today. I don't know I was going to have a book. I don't know I was going to be sitting there talking, being nearly 10 years clean and sober.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know nothing. I don't know I was going to be on loads of TV channels, Christian TV channels. I don't know nothing. Do you know what I mean? And I get to my last drink now, and I've been trying. And like I said, I'd lost nearly everything. Do you know what I mean? I'd lost nearly everything. I'd lost my marriage to my childhood sweetheart. I'd lost my kids. I'd lost nearly everything. Do you know what I mean? And like I went from having everything to losing everything. Do you know what I mean? I went from a local hero from the back, from the back page of my paper to the front page of my paper for being a local drunk. Do you know what I mean? Who was always in trouble. You know what I mean? The boxer who had everything who's lost it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to be sober today is just a gift. And I kept trying. I couldn't break it. I did everything. I did 90 meetings, 90 days. I got a sponsor. I did everything you can try to do. But you know what? The only thing I hadn't done was find a higher power. I got a sponsor. He said, "You need to find a higher power." And I thought, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in the God. I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in none of that. You know what I mean? And I ain't got nowhere else to go. So after I thought, you know what? I'll come out of prison the one last time. I thought I'm going to do everything I've got to do. So I kept on with the meetings. But that voice in my head was always telling me to have a drink, or have a drug, you know what I mean? And I thought, you know what? I'm going to try and find this higher power. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to try, because I've tried everything else. I've lost everything. You know what I mean? I've tried everything else. It ain't worked. And I went to a church. I was like a fish out of water. And remember, Jimmy Tibbs took me to a church. You know what I mean? All them years ago.
Yeah. I mean? How many years? This is a long time before, right?
Yeah. And I went to this church, and I was like a fish out of water. And I kept trying. And then I kept on. I was doing well. You know, I was like doing the meetings, because I had to go to a meeting every day for a year. You know
every single day.
Every single day. I was that bad. So you know what I mean? And the voice in my head was like, have a drink all the time. You know what I mean? It's like being in rehab. You've got to, it's the same thing. You know what I mean? But and the only thing I hadn't done was find a higher power. And I remember doing 6 months. I met this other girl. I was doing okay. And I'll get to my last drink now I ever had. I went to a place in Cannock and to meet a famous boxer. I think it was Ray Mancini, I think. And I went to the bar, and I was only going to get a glass of pop. You know what I mean? And the voice in my head said, "Have a drink, you won't be all right." So being an alcoholic, I just had one. You know what I mean? But that just lit the fire.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like tipping petrol on a fire. And I just couldn't stop there. And the girl I was with, it got me out of there, because I made her show myself. I showed myself up in front of fellow professional boxers. You know what I mean? They went, "That Flute, he's lost it." You know what I mean? And I just surrounded myself with that much drink, and I was drunk every day for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? I didn't move out that place for 2 weeks, and I was drinking bottle after bottle, pass out.
Is this just drink, no food, no nothing?
No, nothing.
No.
Right,
Yeah.
I'm telling you. And because I'd been going to a church, the girl I was with, I was in her house, and instead of phoning an ambulance, because I thought I was going to die. Honestly, this is the truth. I ain't joking. I was in that much pain, man. I'm telling you. And I thought I was going to die. And I could, going back to it, like,
Yeah, I got you, man.
I'm a tough guy, yeah, fair enough. But this is different toughness.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
You know what I mean? And I found the guys from the church where I'd been going. They found the pastor and a bloke named John Crampton, and they found the ambulance, and they come and prayed for me, because I was a member. I'd joined the church. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Honestly, they come and prayed for me, and from that day to this, I ain't never had another drink. You know what I mean? They come and prayed for me. I ain't joking. And then 10 days after that, I got baptised, and I tattooed on my arm 2 Corinthians 5:17-18 that your old life has gone and your new life has begun.
Right.
And I never had a drink or an urge for a drink. I stopped all the criminal activity. I stopped everything. I've become a minister now. I go around the country speaking, and I'm a registered charity, and I just go around helping people who are suffering the same as me. You know what I mean? It's about what I can get now, like I was. It's what I can give.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Jesus in my corner, I've just sent 300 copies into Pentville prison at my own cost.
Have you?
You know what I mean? Because I want to help people. Because God saved me. And I dropped on my knees and I said to God, I said, if you're real and you help me, I will follow you for the rest of my life. I had a spiritual awakening. I don't know what it was at the time, but I had a funny feeling. And I had a spiritual awakening, and I've never had a drink since.
And you never had an urge since, you
I've
said
never
as well.
had an urge.
That's the powerful part of it,
I've never had an urge for a drink. Honestly, I got nothing to boast about. Forget the boxing, forget anything. But only what God's done for me.
Yeah.
God had given me life back. I was gone. And my dad as well. My dad thought he'd lost his son. And my dad got baptised and changed his life as well.
Yeah.
And he's 80 now and he goes to church every week. I mean, like I said, you know, everybody was always searching for something. But let me tell you, God's real, the devil's real. And I'm telling you now, I was chasing the wrong things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And today, I'm happy today. I mean, I got what I got, like, you know, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I've got God in my life. I'm happy. And then I was asked to go to West Ham Boxing Club, and Jimmy Tibbs was there, and I met up with him 30 years after, and he said, "What did I tell you?" He said, I said, "I told you God was going to use you, Andy Flute, didn't I?"
And he remembered.
And he remembered. And he said, "You know what I mean?" And he said, "I told you."
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Jimmy's in his 70s then.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
wow.
And he said, "Andy, I've read your book, man." He said, "Keep up the good work." He said, "I told you God was going to use you." Do you know what I mean?
That's amazing, that, isn't it, when you hear things like that?
You know what I mean? And like, I've been in touch with Jimmy since. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he just said, "Andy, you're doing great, man." I've just made a documentary on TBN about me, which is going to be shown in 200 countries. I've been on TBN Meets, shown in 150 countries. I've been on Revelation TV, 180 countries. You know what I mean? It's just my testimony. Because I was a great boxer, but what God did for me is He just took my addiction away like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now I've got a choice, a free will, whether to either learn about God or just think, you know what I mean? You know, or think, well, I don't need to. But you know what I mean? When you recognise you've got a calling on your life, do you know what I mean? I chose not to backslide. I got offered stuff. You do this. You earn 30 grand there, you earn 40 grand there. I went, I don't do that no more. Because you know what? Breaking my promise to God, I would end up back where I was, only worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I've lost so many friends recently to drink and drugs and everything else. You know what I mean? But you know what? I'm free and I'm happy and I'm sober. I've got a good life today. You know what I mean? And that's the main thing. It's all about being happy. And I'm happy today. I can say I've got peace. I never had peace when I was boxing. I never had peace when I had all that money. I never had peace. But I'm a peaceful guy today, and I help people. I say, instead of hitting people, I pray for people now.
A bit of a change, that one, isn't it? Yeah, but that's brilliant, man. So, like, when you had your spiritual awakening, I think you called it, right?
Yeah.
Was it before that you was going to church and whatnot? But was it more sort of like, wasn't a full-blown believer, if you like?
No, it was like when they come and prayed for me.
Right, that was the moment.
But I've got another time where I had two.
Okay.
And then once they had prayed for me, I carried on with Alcoholics Anonymous and got a sponsor. And I had to do the 12 steps of recovery. Now, the 12 steps of recovery, you had to be willing to make amends to people. And the first step is like admitting that you got a problem and stuff like that. And I had to write an inventory down. But this time when I had my spiritual awakening, what you've just mentioned, I was sober. And I had to write an inventory down and be willing to make amends. And don't forget, I'd done debt collecting, I'd hurt a lot of people, I'd done stuff, but I had to repent of it, like, to God and say, I'm sorry. Do you know what I mean? And I did it honestly. And my sponsor said to me, Andy, he said, if you don't do this honestly, he says, you'll never get right. Do you know what I mean? He said, because God knows. So I'd written everything down, and I'd done it honestly. And my sponsor was sitting in front of me like that, and he went, I felt like a euphoric feeling come up from my stomach all the way through like that. I went, ooh. My sponsor looked at me and he went, God's just touched you, ain't he? And I went, did you just see that? He said, my sponsor, because he's like 20 years sober, and he said, Andy, God's just forgiven you for all the stuff you've did. He said, because you've done it honestly. And I went, wow. I went, wow. I was like, wow, what was that? Wow. And he went, and since then I've rebuilt my life. God's restoring me, everything back into my life, everything I've lost, not only financially, but everything else. And I've got a good life today. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, nobody gave me a chance. Everybody had ripped me off. I was at death's door quite a few times, like I said, you know, and it's one of the best comebacks ever. You know what I mean? But I put it down to God, not myself. You know what I mean? But I just kept trying and trying and trying. And if I hadn't tried God, I'd probably be dead now. Yeah. Because God give us free will. Do you know what I mean? Because He won't force Himself on you. Do you know what I mean? But I had nowhere else to go. I tried everything. Doubt failed. And honestly, I ain't trying to, the only thing I'm boasting about here, forget the boxing and forget everything, is about what God did for me. Yeah. And that's the truth. And my book's got the sinner's prayer in the back, and it's helped that many people. I've had people on social media, I've had people ring me up and say, I've read your book, man, I've stopped drinking. You know what I mean? My son stopped drinking, mothers and fathers have said, and that's the purpose of the book. You know what I mean? You tell you about what I can get. It's about what I can give today. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm a registered charity, and I want to help people because God helped me, and I want to spread the good news of people don't understand. Them chasing everything else. You don't need to. Right. You know what I mean? You need to. God will provide everything if you go to Him. He's waiting with open arms for people. You know what I mean? Yeah. And people who think He ain't real like I did, how can I not be real? I'm here today. Well, I was gone. I was lost. And the only reason I'm here today is because of God. You know what I mean? There ain't no other reason. I know it's because of Andy Flute. Oh yeah, people say, yeah, he's always been a strong guy. He beat it himself. I didn't beat it myself. The drink beat me. I was at death's door, and I cried out to God, and He heard me cry, and He knew that I meant it in my heart. Because if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, God will answer, and that's what He did. And He just took my addiction away like that. And I have not had a drink since, or committed done any stealing or any crime, lying, stealing like I used to be, anything like that. I ain't done nothing like that because I'm a new creation in Christ. I mean, I'll tell you what, my best days are still to come.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you now, my best days are still to come because I've got Jesus in my corner.
That's good, man. Because you're definitely like coming in here. You're obviously. You seem happy now and you're at peace and whatnot. But there's like, I've said this to a few people on here, but it's true when you meet certain people, there's like a good energy around you that's like, you want to be around you want to sit down and have a chat with you. Do you know what I mean?
Thank you.
So as I said to you before, mate, it's always a privilege to sit down and hopefully we get more. As the years go on, we get some training in one day and all that business. Man. We'll plug your book and your charity and all that stuff in the descriptions below, mate. But before we finish, let's finish up with a bit of boxing and stuff, mate. Just a few questions. There's a big fight coming up. This will probably come out after the Ben Eubank Jr. fights, which we'll come to in a sec. But before we do, like fighters, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but who's the best fighter you've ever been in a ring with?
Joe Calzaghe.
It is definitely Joe Calzaghe, Didn't even hesitate to say that one, no. How about the biggest puncher?
I don't know. I sparred a cruiserweight once in Birmingham named Bobby Mack. He was only a bit of a novice, but he hit me harder than anybody ever hit me. Really? Yeah. Cruiserweight, a big old lump. For anyone who doesn't know him, doesn't realise how big a cruiserweight is. If you see him in person, a cruiserweight's a big old lump, isn't it? Yeah. But he hit me harder than anybody ever hit me. But Nigel hits hard. Henry Warden hits hard. Them on par, like, you know what I mean? But,
is that right?
Yeah. Like with Ben's better, but like.
Power's natural. Isn't it? Power's a natural thing. Some people just hit you hard, don't they?
And when I done that exhibition fight with Nigel Benn, man, he gave me everything, man.
Did he?
Yeah. You know what I mean? He hit me as everything. Yeah. He did everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, as we touched on earlier, I had the privilege to be on the pads with him at the weekend.
You know, he did.
And like. His passion on the pads, he's 100 miles an hour. And I said to you before we was on here, like when he's like you're blocking, he's throwing the pads at you. I went, Jesus, bro, the guy can steal it now. He's in his 60s. Do you know what I mean?
I know what he's like. You know what I mean? Because obviously I was sparring with him, when he's at his best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I bet that was a fun time. That was a good day out.
You know what I mean? And I was only a novice.
Yeah, right.
And then I done the exhibition fight with him as well, and that was a battle. Do you know what I mean? But, I wish him all the best. He's a brother in Christ as well. Nigel's born again as well. Yeah.
Lovely fella as well, so shout out Nigel.
Yeah, he's a great guy, like. And they're all great guys, man. I like Chris Eubank. I'm still in touch with Joe Calzaghe, Richie Woodall, and everybody, when you're in the sport of boxing, like, you're more, because you got respect for each other.
Yeah.
Do Do you know what I mean? It's like you want to knock each other's head off when you're in boxing, like with everybody, but you shake hands after, don't you?
For sure, yeah. Well, it's almost like you see a part of you in them, don't you? You're all the same, you're right, you know?
If you're like a decent, person, like you know what I mean? When you just shake hands after, don't you? Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
That's it.
But you see boxers all knock 7 bells out of each other and then hug each other after.
That's it, innit? That's it.
And people say, I don't get that. Do you know what I mean?
You can't understand until you've been in there, can you? I don't think you do understand it. It's a strange breed of person, isn't it?
You know what I mean?
But aside from the people you've been in there with, who would you say is like some of the great? Well, let's go number one. Who's the best pound for pound fighter you think you've ever seen?
Sugar Ray Leonard.
Really, Sugar Ray still.
Yeah.
Because he's your generation, obviously, isn't he?
Yeah, Sugar Ray Leonard.
When you was a kid, I mean.
And Sugar Ray Robinson.
Yeah, way back in the day. The original Sugar Ray.
I've watched the tapes of him, like, you know what I mean? The original Sugar Ray Robinson. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, I liked Hagler as well. But, I like but there's different styles, different things, ain't it? You know what I mean?
It is, it's hard, isn't it? It's a hard question. Because when someone asks you, like, a lot of people you see have kind of got an answer they're about to give, and then they second guess themselves, and like, you can see.
Tommy Hearns as well. I mean, look, you know what I mean? Tommy Hearns is like, a dangerous guy, man.
Yeah, great fighter in his prime.
Brilliant, like, you know what I mean?
And Duran, the other one of the four we ain't mentioned.
I was meant to fight Duran.
Was ya?
Yeah, but they picked up they agreed to the fight after, and they put somebody else in.
Is that right? Yeah.
I was going to box him in Sun City.
That would have been a hell of an experience, that one, wouldn't it, for CV?
When the agent, Telly Toole, the agent rang me up, they said, "Do you want to fight Duran?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Why do you?" He said, "Okay, I'll ring them back." And when they rung them back, he said, "They've covered the job with somebody else."
I bet, right? They probably ring about 10 people, right?
Yeah,
and everyone's like, "Please, yes."
And then they put somebody else in.
Yeah,
right.
So
I missed it.
There's a famous video of him actually sparring Nigel Benn, isn't there? Have you seen it? That's a good
seen
video.
It,
yeah. For anybody
I
who
said
hasn't
to
seen
Terry,
it.
I said you should have just took it.
Yeah, just straight away. Don't ask me next time. Don't ask me stupid questions.
Too late now.
Come on, Terry, let us down, mate. Yeah, no.
Too late now.
But before that, we get to the end, mate. Like as I said, the juniors are fighting each other, aren't they? Eubank and Benn.
Yeah.
Like, have you got much of an opinion on that one?
I've got an opinion because Ben boxed at the same level as what Eubank has, but if Eubank's weak at the weight, Ben will take him. He's young and ambitious.
Yes,
Do you know what I mean? Because like when Eubank lost to Liam Smith, Ben will be being a bit harder, being a puncher than Liam Smith.
Yeah,
you know
I think by far.
I mean? So if Eubank's weight drained, Eubank should win because he's boxed like Billy Joe Saunders, James DeGale, and you know what I mean.
Significantly bigger too,
you know
isn't
what I mean? Yeah, but and he should win, but. Never write anybody off like Ben, to be honest, like because he's got his father's like aggression and instinct and stuff like that. You know, that warrior spirit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It all depends on the night as well, because I don't know. I've got to lean towards Chris because of his experience and if he's done the weight properly. But as you get older, doing the weight's harder. I don't know if you experienced that yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
But when I got older, keep dragging your body down. It's harder.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And Chris is getting older, so he's got to drag his body down, and that's what his dad died want nothing to do with the fight, because of the weight, right? You know what I mean? Because he's getting it down to 160, ain't he? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's a hard thing.
That's going to make the difference.
And well, Eubank as well, even though he looks young and fresh, he's 36 now. I think,
but that's going to make the difference.
Of course, absolutely.
I think that's the key. Like, if he can drag his weight down and still keep his strength, then Chris should win. You know what I mean? Eubank should win.
Yeah.
But if he's weight drained, Conor will win.
Yeah, for sure. Good call. Yeah, I think I probably agree with that one because I think if the size is a big thing, but you know yourself, if you're feeling flat from the weight, it don't make no difference. A little bloke could do you easy as anything, couldn't he? But as I said to you before, mate, I really appreciate you doing this. This has been a pleasure like last time. Last question I always ask you, I asked you last time, I can't remember your answer, but I don't think it was a good one. I asked you anyway. Which football team do you support?
If I had to support a football team, it would be Wolverhampton Wanderers.
That's not terrible. That's not too bad. The correct answer is Chelsea, but never mind. We'll get to it next time. As I say, mate, always appreciate you having me. Hold your book up, mate. We'll stick our fists up to finish. Squeeze the neck. Boom!